Once upon a time, in a faraway land.
What are fairy stories?
The strange and wondrous place where nothing is as it seems.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest?
Fairy is a perilous land.
Before she found herself falling down what seemed to be a very deep well.
It is the place you visit
A world
in your
of
dreams.
myth and magic.
When the clock began to
The
chime
evening
midnight,
star sailed down through the
A
sky.
mysterious voice began calling to the sad
She
princess.
pricked her finger with her needle. 3 drops of blood fell on the
In a
small
trance,
forest
she
window.
followed the haunting
And peered
sound
into
of
the
a
hollow
winding
tree.
stairway to the top of the
You
tower.
can read along with me in your book.
waved her wand and said the magic words.
Let's begin now.
Well met, witches. Welcome to Storybook, Sacred Lore of Witchcraft. We've gathered tonight to hear a piece of sacred lore, the first tale that opens every edition of the Brothers Grimm's Household Tales. Tale number 1, The Frog King, or Iron Henry. Once upon a time, there was a princess who went out into the forest and sat down at the edge of a cool well. She had a golden ball that was her favorite plaything. She threw it up high and caught it in the air, and was delighted by all this. One time, the ball flew up very high, and as she stretched out her hand and bent her fingers to catch it again, the ball hit the ground near her and rolled until it fell right into the water. The princess was horrified, and when she went to look for the ball, she found the well was so deep that she couldn't see the bottom. So she began to weep miserably and to lament. "Oh, if only I had my ball again, I'd give anything, my clothes, my jewels, my pearls, and anything in the world to get my ball back." As she sat there grieving, a frog stuck its head out of the water and said, "Why are you weeping so miserably?" "Oh," she said, "you nasty frog, you can't help me. My golden ball has fallen into the water." "Well, I don't want your pearls, your jewels, nor your clothes," the frog responded. "But if you will accept me as your companion and let me sit next to you and let me eat from your little golden plate and sleep in your little bed and promise to love me and cherish me, I'll fetch your ball for you." The princess thought, "What nonsense this simple-minded frog is blabbering. He's got to remain in his water, but perhaps he can get me my ball, so I'll say yes to him." And she said, "Yes, fair enough. But first fetch me the golden ball. I promise you everything." The frog dipped his head beneath the water and dived down. It didn't take long before he came back to the surface with the ball in his mouth. He threw it onto the ground, and when the princess caught sight of the ball again, she quickly ran over to it, picked it up, and was so delighted to have the ball in her hand again that she thought of nothing else but to rush back home with it. The frog called after her, "Wait, princess, take me with you, the way you promised." But she didn't pay any attention to him.
Mr. Froggy went a-courtin' and he did ride. Frog went a-courtin' and he did ride, sword and pistol by his side. He rode up to Miss Mousie's door. He rode up to Miss Mousie's close his door, just like he'd been there before. He took Miss Mouse upon his knee. He took Miss Mouse upon his knee, said, Miss Mouse, will you marry me? Without my Uncle Rat's consent. Without my Uncle Rat's consent, I couldn't marry the president. Now Uncle Rat, when he came home, Uncle Rat, when he came home, says, who's been here since I've been gone? Well, a very fine gentleman has been here. Very fine gentleman has been here, and he wants for me to be his dear. Now Uncle Rat laughed and he shook his fat side. Uncle Rat laughed and he shook his fat sides to think of Miss Mouse of being a bride. Where will your wedding supper be? Where will your wedding supper be? Way down yonder in a hollow tree. Now the first one to come was a garter snake. First one to come was a garter snake, and she passed round the wedding cake. Now the next one to come was a bumblebee bee. Next one to come was a bumblebee bee, and she came rolling a big green pea. Now the next one to come was a Betsy bug. Next one to come was a Betsy bug, and she passed round beside her jug. Now the last one to come was a muley cow. Last one to come was a muley cow. She tried to dance, but she didn't know how. There's bread and cheese upon the shelf. There's bread and cheese upon the shelf. If you want any more, go sing it yourself.
The next day, the princess sat at the table and heard something coming up the marble steps. Splish, splash. Splish, splash. Soon thereafter, it knocked at the door and cried out, "Princess, youngest daughter, open up!" She ran to the door and opened it, and there was the frog whom she had forgotten. Horrified, she quickly slammed the door shut and sat back down at the table. But the king saw that her heart was thumping and said, "Why are you afraid?" "There's a nasty frog outside," she replied. "He retrieved my golden ball from the water, and I promised him that he could be my companion, but I never believed at all that he could get out of the water. Now he's standing outside in the front door and wants to come inside." As she said this, there was a knock at the door, and the frog cried, "Princess, youngest daughter, open up. Don't you remember what you said? Down by the well's cool water? Princess, youngest daughter, open up." The king said, "You must keep your promise no matter what you said. Go and open the door for that frog." She obeyed, and the frog hopped inside and followed her at her heels until they came to the chair. And when she sat down again, he cried out, "Lift me up to the chair beside you." The princess didn't want to do this, but the king ordered her to do it. When the frog was at the table, he said, "Now push your little golden plate nearer to me so we can eat together." The princess had to do this as well, and after he had eaten until he was full, he said, "Now I'm tired and I want to sleep. Bring me upstairs to your little room. Get your little bed ready so that we can lie down in it." The princess became terrified when she heard this, for she was afraid of the cold frog. She didn't dare touch him, and now he was to lie in her bed next to her? She began to weep and didn't want to comply with his wishes at all. But the king became angry and ordered her to do what she had promised, or she'd be held in disgrace. Nothing helped. She had to do what her father wanted. But she was bitterly angry in her heart. So she picked up the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs into her room, lay down in her bed, and instead of setting him down next to her, she threw him crash against the wall. "Now you'll leave me in peace, you nasty frog." But the frog didn't fall down dead. Instead, when he fell down on the bed, he became a handsome young prince. Well now, indeed he did become her dear companion, and she cherished him as she had promised, and in their delight they fell asleep together. The next morning, a splendid coach arrived, drawn by 8 horses with feathers and glistening gold harnesses. The prince's faithful Henry accompanied them. He had been so distressed when he had learned his master had been turned into a frog that he had ordered 3 iron bands to be wrapped around his heart to keep it from bursting with grief. When the prince got into the coach with the princess, his faithful servant took his place at the back so they could return to the prince's realm. And after they had traveled some distance, the prince heard a loud cracking noise behind. So he turned around and cried out, "Henry, the coach is breaking." "No, my lord, it is really nothing but the band around my heart, which nearly came apart when you turned into a frog and your fortune fell, and you were made to live in that dreadful well." 2 more times the prince heard the cracking noise and thought the coach was breaking, but the noise was only the sound of the bands springing from faithful Henry's heart, because his master had been released from the spell and was happy.
I've got a heart filled with love for you, dear. For you, dear, filled my heart with love. I've got a dream that is filled with you, dear. For you, dear, filled my dream with love. The moment I saw you, I fell beneath your spell. From the first time I kissed you, anyone could tell I've got a heart filled with love for you, dear. For you, dear, filled my heart with love. I've got a heart filled with love for you, dear. For you, dear, filled my heart with love, dear. It is only you, dear. You filled my heart with love.
The end. When we next gather, We'll discuss this tale more deeply looking into the themes and symbols that have woven their way into versions of the tale throughout the ages. Until then, may all your travels be filled with wonder.